Hey everyone, my name is Benjamin, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the ChatGPT API by OpenAI. Let's get started. So OpenAI have introduced the ChatGPT and Whisper APIs at the same time, which is great. And they are already showing us examples of people that are using the APIs within Snapchat, Quizlet, then Instacart. You can watch the videos over here with some of the suggestions or the ways that those companies are already integrating the API. But the important thing here is the API part, and they are discussing basically the GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is the new model that is replacing Text DaVinci 003. So one of the important things here is that this is the exact same model that they're using within the ChatGPT Web App. And another important thing here is that this model is roughly 10 times cheaper compared to the GPT 3.5 models that were available earlier. So this is a huge improvement, both in cost and hopefully accuracy or performance of the models. And they're basically giving us an example over here how to do the OpenAI API calls, which we're going to have a look in a minute. And next, they are basically saying that they are recommending the GPT 3.5 Turbo models instead of the previous old models, just because it is much cheaper now. So to give you a little bit of evaluation of the new API compared to the web app, I've started a simple prompt. So this is the prompt that I'm using, and we're going to compare the results within the API. So I'm just telling ChatGPT, you're a financial advisor, write me a plan to invest 10,000 USD with the goal of maximum profit for 1 year. And I want specific investments and allocation percentages. How I came up with those type of prompts, I'm going to make another video in which I'm going to essentially walk you through the process of prompt engineering so you can hopefully improve your own prompts as well. But yeah, this is the prompt and this is the response. It's basically saying that it is an AI language model, so it can be asked to provide any financial advice, I guess. And then it is talking about if you're looking to invest the money, maybe 60% stocks, then real estate funds, then crypto, then peer-to-peer lending. And then I'm asking it as a second prompt or input to write the plan as a tweet. So essentially this will summarize everything. And here is the response. So I'm going to show you how you can do the same thing within the API. So to start with the API, first thing we need is an API key. And this is available from the platform OpenAI account API keys. And here you must be logged in. So I'm going to create a new key for you. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go to my notebook. And I'm going to basically insert the API key here. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to delete this after recording the video. So yeah, probably you need your own right here. And then I'm going to delete the old one. Yeah, and here is the notebook that we are going to use. So I'm installing the OpenAI library, then tick token, which I'm going to show you why we're going to use this. And if I run through this, this should go ahead. I have already installed this. And this is the API key that I'm passing to the OpenAI library. So I should be able to create some requests right now. And I'm going to go to the example right here from the official documentation. And I'm going to just run it so I can see whether or not everything is running smoothly. So now that we have our first request, let's essentially redo what we had in the web app, which is this, where we are giving an identity to ChatGPT, and then we are requesting a financial or investment plan. So to do that, I'm just going to write the prompt right here, which is exactly the same text that we had in the web app. And then I'm going to just take this, which is the first request that we made. And the first thing that I'm going to do right here is enter the prompt from here. And I'm going to also start with the first sentence, which is giving the identity to the model. And to do that, I'm going to specify another message here. All right, so this is the initial completion we're going to do. So we're using the newly added chat completion, which has a documentation in the guide. So yeah, we are using the GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is this model. And then we are essentially giving it a couple of messages, which are going to represent the conversation between us and the model. It is important to note that you have to basically give all of the messages in this array because there is no knowledge of session or specific chat, such as the web app. So it's a bit different here. You basically need to pass in all of the messages that you are talking about or the chat completion. So here I'm going to start with this. So we are giving an identity, and this is the role of the system. So this is basically the initial prompt, which is going to prime the model to be some sort of an identity that we're going to give it. And then we have the user content, which is our prompt. So this is essentially this text right here. And this is the system prompt that we're using, exactly the same thing. And I'm going to run this. And we're going to have a look at the result. When the API call is complete. It might take some time, but it's generally much faster compared to the web app. So here is the response. And as you can see, we have this choices array, which contains a finish reason, which is the reason why the generation has stopped. If you know, the API has, or the model, ChatGPT has a limit of 4096 tokens. So in here, you might essentially go overboard, and then the finish reason might be length. So this is something that I've seen, and we're going to explore this further. And then we have the model, the object, and then you have this usage, which is essentially telling us that the prompt took 54 tokens, and then the completion tokens, which is the text right here, was 421. So this looks okay. But as you can see, this is a bit tough to have a look at. So to essentially give us a better look of it, I'm going to use the IPython display and markdown, just in case that we have some markdown here. I'm going to paste in a function, which is essentially doing this, showing us a choice. And as you can see, a choice has a message, and then the message has a content. So I'm going to extract this, and I'm going to show it. And I want the first choice from here. And this is the much better formatted text, as you can see. And as far as the comparison goes, you can see that we are already receiving some different results right here. But the specific allocations that ChatGPT is providing us might be, or at least they look a bit different compared to the web app, but that's all right. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is how to create a conversation. So essentially, I'm going to redo this and then asking ChatGPT to write me the plan as a tweet. So to do that, I'm going to essentially add to these messages. And to do that, I'm going to take this text in a string, and I'm going to create a variable with it. So it's the choices, the first one, and then as you can recall, we're going to get the message and the content. So what we have here thus far, yeah, this is the response from ChatGPT. And then I'm going to copy and paste this. Okay, so I'm going to add to the array, and then I'm going to add the response from ChatGPT, which is a key as known as assistant. So this is what the API requires. And then the content of the assistant is going to be the answer that ChatGPT has given us. And then I'm going to add another prompt. And I'm going to call this format prompt. And the format prompt is going to be, yeah, let's see, I have a typo here. Yeah. And the format prompt is going to be this. Write the plan as a tweet. I'm going to just copy and paste this here. And then we're going to execute this. So essentially, we're giving the conversation or the chat thus far. And if I get the result here, you can see that we have everything in here written as a tweet. So I'm going to again use this show choice to get a better format. And this is the tweet that is giving us. And it is suggesting all hashtags. And we have a list of the allocations that was providing us. As you can see, it's also different compared to the web app, but still it looks like the similar format. And yeah, the hashtags also seem very similar. All right, so this is how the API works. This is how you can create a prompt, and then you can create a chat or a conversation. Keep in mind that there are some limitations, and as I've already talked about, the tokens are going to be limited by this number. So this includes everything that you're giving in as a text, and then the response that the ChatGPT is giving us. So this is the total tokens for this conversation, including the response right here. So this number cannot be greater than 4096. Keep that in mind. And there are other ways to limit the number of tokens if you are reserved about that. So if you want to limit the number of tokens, the API is providing us a way to do that. And if we go to the API reference, you can see that we have this chat completions API, which is currently in beta. And here we have a number of parameters that we can use for the API. And this one is the one that we are talking about. The maximum number of tokens allowed for the generated answer. So this will be the limit of the tokens of the response, but essentially the prompt response. And yeah, this will be a parameter that you can specify. And as a default, it has no limit, essentially. It's an infinity. So how we can use this? So for example, if we get to the first prompt that we had, I'm going to copy this with just the first prompt. And then if I come here and specify the parameter max tokens, yeah, let me just fix this. So let's say that I want to specify max tokens for 64, let's say, just as an illustration. So the first thing that it is different right here is the finish reason. It's now length. It was before it was stop. So this is saying us, hey, this ChatGPT completion is actually not complete, but the model has cut off. And this is the cutoff based on this parameter. And as you can see, we have pretty much the start of the same sentence, but then we have a cutoff right here. And to illustrate this, I'm going to use the show choice function once again, just to make sure that you know what is happening. Yeah, this is the text. And as you can see, the completion tokens are cut off at 64. We can try 128. Note that this isn't forcing the model to essentially summarize the text, but just cutting off the text. And essentially what we have here is the same thing. So to calculate the number of tokens that we're going to send within the prompt or the text, I'm going to show you this library called TickToken. And it is, again, library by OpenAI. And what it's essentially doing is creating these encodings for some specific model. And then we can count the number of tokens that we are talking within some given string. So, for example, if I go here and get the encoding for GPT or ChatGPT, this is going to create this encoding. And then if I encode the prompt and then have a look at the length of the result, we're going to get 34. And if I go here, remove this, and just run the prompt, this will give us 41 prompt tokens. So there is a bit of a difference here. And this might be just because I am essentially giving the prompt as spaces, or maybe there are even more some of the special symbols that we are entering here. But essentially this should give you a rough estimate of how many tokens you are giving as a prompt. The next thing that I'm going to show you is how you can use the ChatGPT API to generate multiple responses. And to do that, I'm going to take this completion, paste it in here, remove the max tokens, and if we go to the reference, you can see that we have this parameter called just n, and this is the completions or the choices that the response is going to give us. As you recall, the choices is an array, and thus far we had just one, and this is because we have this default. So I'm going to pass in 3 as an n, and then have a look at the result. So this should give us 3 different completions, and the result should contain the JSON of this. And yeah, this is the response. We have 1, 2, 3 responses, and it's a bit hard to have a look at all of these. We have the total tokens here, and yeah, if we want to have a look at those, I'm going to iterate over those and show the choice. For each one as a markdown. And yeah, these are the choices. So we have relatively different allocations, stock investments, cryptocurrencies. All right, so this looks actually, one of the worst ones, looks pretty similar to the one that we have within the web app. The allocations are a bit different, but that's all right. So you can get different completions and maybe try to work with some of those instead of just getting a single completion. And the last thing that I'm going to show you for the ChatGPT API is this parameter called temperature, which is essentially a way to get more random or more focused response. So I would guess that when you are essentially giving a larger temperature, the model is considering, let's say, a wider array of possible tokens, while the temperature when it is a wall, you can say that the model is sampling from the vocabulary with very similar words based on the attention weights. So, but that's just my interpretation of this. And to have a look at the temperature parameter and what can it do for us, I'm going to take our prompt right here. And I'm going to start with a temperature of, let's say, 0, and the default value is 1. So if I specify this temperature of 0, let's see what happens. Then I'm going to take this as well, run it with the default of 1, and run it with, let's say, 1.5. And I just want to have a look at the result. So let me copy this. Run this. And run this. Yeah. And finally, I want to do pretty much the same thing with the maximum possible value for the temperature, which is going to be 2. And once everything is done, yeah, I think that this is it. So for temperature of 0, we can see that the results are very, very focused, really, for the text or the prompt that we're giving it. But I don't see, yeah, diversify your portfolio, allocate your funds, some general advice. So this is the default one. And this is looking very similar to what we got initially when we were prompting the model. And then we have 1.5. So it starts with Dear Client. I would like to remind that events comes. Okay, so this sounds not as an AI, but like probably a person that is writing to you. Okay. And then some sort of gibberish. Engaging a port smart assistant technologies typically essentially describes foreseeable offshore something. So we are pretty much breaking it. Think you're gaining shared creation succeeds. So this might not be the best, the best value for temperature of 1.9. And at temperature of 2, it looks like it is taking a lot of time. Let's interrupt this and rerun it. Try to see if the API is going to give us a response for temperature 2.0. But yeah, it looks like the API is giving us a vastly different results, and we are pretty much breaking it with a temperature of 1.9. 1.5, and when we're giving temperature of 2, it looks like the request is hanging. Let's say 1.9, and let's see if we can get a response with that, because the maximum value is going to be 2. Yeah, we have a response from 1.9. What so real powerful financial expertise, trace union ranking, ensure headless section JSON types. So yeah, with this particular value, the text is completely nonsensical. But take a note that when the temperature was 1.5, at first everything looked to be all right, and then at some point it just fell off. But then it finished with best wishes, virtual finance advisor. So it's really peculiar how essentially the generation broke down and then somewhat recuperated right here. So this is it for the ChatGPT API video. I hope that you liked it. We've seen how you can create a basic request, how you can create a conversation, get multiple outputs or generations, have a look at how you can limit the number of tokens that the completion is giving you. So you can also use the tick token library to essentially estimate the number of tokens that you are going to request, and then calculate the usage bill that you're going to get. And further, we have had a look at the temperature parameter, which essentially you can use to fine-tune the types of responses that you're given. So this is something that is completely different compared to the web interface that ChatGPT has provided thus far. So now you have some sort of tuning, and you can also explore the other parameters that the ChatGPT app API reference is giving you. So in the next video, I'm going to show you a bit more in-depth look at how I am creating prompts or prompt engineering. And the contents of this tutorial and the next one are going to be up on ML Expert, and I'm going to give you a link in the description to both of those. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.